Hello, everybody. Welcome. It is so wonderful to see all of you today. For those of you I don't know or who don't know me, my name is Carly Brusky, and I'm the Assistant Director of Strategic Partnerships here at the Center on Aging, Trauma, and Holocaust Survivor Care. I just want to start by thanking everyone for your willingness to participate in this review process. We know how busy everybody is, and we are sincerely grateful not only for your time today, but for the thoughtful attention you will dedicate to reviewing these proposals in the weeks ahead. Your vast expertise, perspectives, and commitment to person centered trauma informed care are really what makes each cohort so strong, so successful, and so unique. We would also like to express our appreciation for your continued partnership and engagement with the center in general. We look forward to learning from each and every one of you and hearing your creative ideas for how to advance PCTI across aging services. We are incredibly fortunate to have the opportunity to work alongside such a dedicated group of professionals. So before we transition into the meat of today's training, I do want to share one quick but important housekeeping announcement. If you have not already done so, please be sure to complete that conflict of interest form. And now I am pleased to introduce today's speakers. Shelley Rude-Wernick is Associate Vice President of the Center. Shelley's going to begin by providing background on the grant program and outlining your role as reviewers. Following Shelley's presentation, Amanda Jarvis, Assistant Director of Programs and Training, will walk you through the technical components of completing and submitting your reviews. Amanda's also going to serve as your primary contact moving forward. So if any questions arise about the review process, feel free to reach out to Amanda directly. Thank you again for being here and for your partnership. And now I am going to turn it over to Shelley. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. Hello, everyone. I am so happy, genuinely happy to see you on here. I know who we asked to volunteer for this committee, and I know who said yes and who rose to that occasion. Many of you again and again after years and years. And yet still here I am on the Zoom and I see faces and I'm like, wow, Hetty, wow, Marcy, oh my goodness, Lita, hi. Like I'm seeing all of these faces and really just so excited because it has been a while since I've seen a lot of you, and I would love to catch up, and hopefully through this process we can catch up too. Thank you all for being here, Carly. Thank you for that overview and for reaching out to so many of our friends and partners to help us with this very important part of our process. Abby is behind the scenes in this Zoom, and she's going to be putting up some slides. So I'll just ask Abby to advance slides when we get there. But before, I just want to share um, a little bit of a moment. I don't do this often, and I hope I do it justice. But I've had a little bit of an emotional day today. It started out, I spoke with a group who's visiting DC from the Seattle Federation. Is there anyone on here from Seattle? Not sure. And one of the participants, and we spoke about trauma-informed care and trauma and families and Holocaust survivors and what we've learned and all of these things. And she told me that she is a foster mother, and one of her children was killed by police brutality. And she told us this story, and she told us about his family and how this really just destroyed his entire family, his biological family, and his mother ended up dying and brother died, and she's continued to be an advocate for the community and for his family even years later. And that was weighing heavily on me. And then just an hour ago or so, Jewish Federations of North America welcomed this fabulous Israeli band to our office, and they gave us a little mini concert. And this was a family of musicians, a family who one of their sons, one of their musician sons, died while serving in the IDF recently. And he was like a Eurovision superstar. I forgot exactly what levels. They were very proud of what levels he had made it to. But this concert was about bringing light and bringing joy and bringing their brother and their son into the light and into the joy, and embracing life and hearing these stories of families impacted by trauma over and again who are taking those experiences and using them to make a difference in the world. Um, Wow, it's just been an emotional day. I don't have a concluding part of that sentence. I'm just letting you know where my headspace is. And now seeing all of you friends who have been with us year after year is just adding to that emotion. So all of that is to say that I'm genuinely overjoyed and thank you for joining with us. Um, Many of you who have reviewed in the past know how important and meaningful this part of our process is. We at the Center on Aging, Trauma, and Holocaust Survivor Care, we work with the federal government in our mission to change aging services, right? To improve aging services for good, using the lessons of Holocaust survivors in learning how we can bring about person-centered, trauma-informed care throughout aging services to help Holocaust survivors, others impacted by trauma, and their family caregivers as well. And we do that through two main ways in our partnership with the government. One is through direct services, where we fund local organizations to implement person-centered trauma-informed programs. And the other is through a suite of education and training initiatives. Many of you have been on our webinars. Many of you have presented as speakers on our webinars, and I thank you for that and come to our in-person conferences. But we do have many ways to get the word out, and we use the information from those direct services. Thanks for pulling up those slides. I get very excited and forget to say, let's start the slides. We can go to slide, let's say 7. Let's go to slide 7. We use the information that we learn from all of those local subgrantees, those local innovations in person-centered trauma-informed programs. We use that information. Can you go back one to slide 7? Maybe the numbers have changed. The one with the circles, that's the one. We use all of the information that we learn from the local organizations in order to inform our trainings and our education back to those same subgrantees as well as the rest of the field. The place where we're asking you for your help is in that direct service part, so that you can help us select the next cohort of innovations subgrantees to develop those programs. I'm really going to try hard to stick to the slides and to the order here and not go off script again. But thank you for bearing with me on that one. So what are we talking about when we think about person-centered trauma-informed care? What is this approach? Many of you already know this. This may be review, but for some of our new friends and our new review committee members, we think about the person-centered trauma-informed approach as a lens or a mindset. It's not a specific therapy for someone who's been impacted in trauma, although a therapy, a treatment, can certainly be person-centered and trauma-informed and should be person-centered and trauma-informed. But really, when we think about this approach, it is a philosophy or a concept, a model on how we can create all the systems, all the processes to not re-traumatize people, to make them acceptable for older adults who have a history of trauma, to make someone feel safe enough to come to a program, to make someone not afraid when they see a photographer there taking pictures, to not know, wait, who's taking pictures? Where will those photos end up? Am I going to be safe? It's about using principles of empowerment and dignity in order to create a system that someone can actually feel comfortable in and receive the help and support that they are seeking and that social service providers are offering. Can you go to the next slide? We've developed the person-centered trauma-informed model using the principles of a trauma-informed system developed by SAMHSA, that's the inner wheel, as well as the principles, person-centered principles, which is the outer wheel. And you can imagine the principles on the inner wheel and the principles on the outer wheel, they can all go together. So you see one principle, empowerment, voice, and choice. That could also lend itself to self-determination, even though it's on the other side of the wheel. We used to have the wheel rotate and spin like that, but it made me dizzy. So we don't do that anymore, but you can imagine how this fits together. And what we mean by taking advantage of some of these principles, I'll give a couple of examples. So I mentioned safety and the photographs. You want to have a transparent process or announcement for someone to know what these photographs are going to be used for. It should be written somewhere. There should be a photo release, for example. Peer support. We encourage people to call their peers and invite them out to a program or to an activity. Um, Empowerment, voice, and choice. You know, if someone is offering a meal program, they should have choices in the meals that the participants will eat, or choices in, you know, what program they'll participate in. When we do program evaluations, we make sure to always let participants know that they can opt out at any point in time, and they can their answers will have no bearing on their service or on future service delivery. We make sure that places and spaces show that we accept everyone by having culturally relevant artwork on the walls, signage on the walls. I went to a doctor in Toronto not long ago. I was there for a conference, and it was an optometrist, and they had as artwork on the walls, like eye charts, you know, like with the big E, but they were in all different languages, and they had a Hebrew one. And I was like, oh, wow. You know, and Toronto has been this site of so much anti-Semitism recently that they had a Chinese character one, they had all different, an English one, they had all different characters. And I saw a Hebrew one, and I thought, oh wow, you know, this is a welcoming place for all cultures. So artwork really can make a big difference. So we encourage all of our sub-grantees to really get to know these principles, and work with each other to learn techniques and tools to bring these principles to life within the programs that they design. And the RFP itself that these applicants are applying for, the RFP has a lot of resources and tools on what the person-centered trauma-informed approach is. So the most successful applicants will read those tools, and learn a little bit, and include that into their applications. Can you go to the next slide? We think of the person-centered trauma-informed approach as universal. You can use it on an individual level, interpersonal, organizational, societal, or public policy level. Really, it doesn't only have to be used for social services. A football team can be trauma-informed, and I've seen an example of that in the Minnesota Vikings. A newsroom can be person-centered and trauma-informed. Social services is a very direct link, and it's easy to see that, you know, maybe because someone has a history of food insecurity, you want to make sure that food is abundant at this program. That's an easy link to see. But really, the person-centered trauma-informed approach is universal and should be used everywhere with everyone, by, you know, every person in an organization, from a frontline worker to a manager to a board member, making sure that these universal precautions, we say, because anyone can have a history of trauma, these universal precautions are always there. Can you go to the next slide? So that's the background of what we seek to do overall. In terms of this specific RFP, we have a few different grant programs through which Jewish Federations of North America awards out funds. This grant program is called our Innovations Program, and it is a competitive RFP that others apply to. The RFP it went out a little over a month ago, and applications are actually due tomorrow. So we're starting to see those applications come in. We're expecting a wide range of applicants. Can you go to the next slide? Our eligibility is pretty liberal. Most organizations that are nonprofits or local governments are eligible to apply. You can read the eligibility list here. We had a screening for applicants, and so organizations that are not eligible shouldn't be applying. It would be an exception if one got through our screening process. But if you're, as you're doing reviews, if something doesn't seem right to you, feel free to ask us. One of the main criteria is that the organization does have to be based in the United States and serving people who are in the United States, because the funding does come from the US government. Next slide. Another piece of eligibility that may not be as clear is that the organization that's applying to this program has to be a direct service provider to people who are either Holocaust survivors or older adults with a history of trauma, or family caregivers, or all of the above. We're not looking for umbrella organizations in this specific program. There's a different program for umbrella organizations. For this, the applicant organization really needs to be the direct service provider. Now, that direct service provider can partner with others that are not direct service providers. partner with a museum, partner with, any other kind of entity. And you might see that. But the applicant organization needs to be a direct service provider, and the application itself needs to have a direct service component in it. Next slide. Our timeline. This is a little bit of an awkward, this is the timeline for the grantees. It's a little awkward. It's different from how we've done it in the past. It's an 18-month grant period divided into two halves, two 9-month periods. And so we've asked the applicants to create their program in two 9-month periods. We are funded on congressional appropriations, so we don't always know if there's going to be funding the next year, a year in advance, which is why we need to have this break in the middle. Fortunately, we have had government funding consistently throughout this program through successive political administrations, both in the White House as well as in Congress. It is a bipartisan issue, and we've never had a challenge with not being funded, but there is always that risk because this is taxpayer money on congressional appropriations. So the program is divided into two 9-month periods. The subgrantees propose an 18-month budget for an 18-month program, but divided into two halves, and those two halves do need to be equal. Next slide. Applicants are to propose one of two different award amounts, either option A or option B. Option A is $60,000 per program period, so per 9 months. Option B is $105,000 per 9 months. There is a match component to that. The match is essentially it's 1/3 of the amount that JF&A gives out. So if an applicant is proposing in the option A category, proposing to receive $60,000 from JF&A, then they would have a match of $20,000. And so they're, am I doing this right? Did I do this right? 60 divided by 3 is 20, yes. So their total program budget for that first period would be $80,000. I introduced the concept of match. This is how I get in trouble by going off script. I shouldn't have done that yet. I've probably confused you more. We'll get to that later. Let's not think about match yet. Here, $60,000 in the first program period, $60,000 in the second program period results in $120,000 for the 18-month from JF&A. Option B, the level is $105,000. Each program period resulting in an 18-month total award of $210,000. As I mentioned, the funding levels need to be the same for both program periods. We've given the applicants a spreadsheet with formulas baked in, so they should do this right. I know I was correct. I was getting extra credit when I shouldn't have. We'll get to the match later. The numbers that I said are correct, and the numbers on the screen are correct, but I introduced the concept of the match a little too early. The funding levels, are designed to make it easy for the applicants to be able to follow this 9-month period and to be able to calculate the match. That's why we're only giving two options, option A or option B. It also should make it easier for you as the reviewers, as you're looking at their budget, to see if they've done their budget correctly. If they're requesting, any number that's not 60,000 or 105,000, that something is not right and that they have not been able to follow directions, and maybe that's an indicator of their capacity to implement this grant. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Match. Okay, here we are. We didn't have to wait long. There is a match requirement. If you are doing option A, then your match requirement is 20,000. As I said, you would be applying for 60,000. Your match requirement is 20,000, and your total program budget would be 80,000. And for the 18-month period, 160,000. So we think of the match plus the JF&A funding as one holistic program budget. They have to spend from both categories throughout the grant period. The match money that they contribute, it can be in-kind resources or it can be financial, but it needs to be spent down along with the money that JF&A gives them within the program period on that project. Next slide. And this shows the calculations for option B. Same thing. If you apply at the $105,000 level, your match requirement would be $35,000, and your total program budget for that first program period would be $140,000. So this organization, if applying in option B, would create an 18-month program worth $280,000 divided into these two program periods. Next slide. So a little bit about the innovations program. I mentioned that we have a couple different programs that we fund. This is the innovations program. It is our competitive RFP process by which any organization that meets the eligibility criteria can apply. And this program is designed to develop and test and evaluate innovations in person-centered trauma-informed care. And we provide a lot of hand-holding, coaching, evaluation support to help the organizations that we fund really learn, does this person-centered trauma-informed intervention make a difference in a person's life? And we have many indicators. We'll get to that one in a future slide. Okay, go to the next slide. A lot of times we get asked, well, how do we know if something is innovative? What's the definition of innovation? We really want to, we're looking for new or expanded ideas or services to meet an unmet community need. And we know that an idea, not every idea is new under the sun. We know that something might be innovative for one community that's been done in another place, but it's never been tried in this community. So therefore it's innovative, or it's never been tried with this population, or it's never been tried with this angle. If there's something that's new or different for the specific service population or for that location, then we would consider that innovative. We really ask the organization to think critically about what the needs are in their community, not what they think we're looking for. We want them to be responsive to their needs and find a way to use person-centered trauma-informed concepts to address that need. Next slide. We are funded from our government funding to assist 3 priority service populations. Those service populations are Holocaust survivors, older adults with a history of trauma, or family caregivers. Under the Older Americans Act, older adult is defined as age 60 or older. So a lot of family caregivers also are older adults themselves. So they would fall under both categories. There is no single definition of who is a Holocaust survivor, although anyone who would be considered a Holocaust survivor or might be considered a Holocaust survivor would surely be considered age 60 or older. So they would fit into that older adult category. But these are the intended service populations. An organization can serve, we have definitions we have broader definitions of all of these in the RFP. And I see a question about definition of family caregiver. That means family or friend. It doesn't necessarily mean, blood relation. And that definition is certainly provided in the RFP. These are the service populations that are the focus of this grant program, the intended participants. On occasion, someone who is not one of these service someone who's not part of the service populations can be part of the same program. It's the exception, and it's really if it's not taking a seat away from someone who is a service participant. So for example, if someone is having a person-centered trauma-informed yoga program, someone who is not in one of these categories can be in the yoga class as long as it's not taking a seat away from someone who is one of the priority populations for this project. Okay. And importantly, I don't know if this is on the next slide. Can you go to the next slide? Importantly, the project that's proposed does need to have a direct service component. It's not a purely educational grant. So there does need to be a direct service to the service population. The next category of people are what we call supporters of service populations. those are people who engage with the service populations. So for example, professional service providers, people who are working for a social service agency, or volunteers, people who are volunteering with an organization, who may provide services to someone who is a Holocaust survivor, an older adult, or a family caregiver, someone who is engaging with, working with the priority service populations are called supporters of service populations. For this RFP, because of how we're funded, it is okay to engage and work with supporters of service populations, but the direct service project itself is supposed to have the focus on the service population itself. Holocaust survivor, older adult with history of trauma, or friend or family caregiver, not the professionals or the volunteers. And again, a project can certainly engage and work with and help train and provide, provide engagement with people who are supportive of service population, but the focus is for the service population. Next slide. We are asking applicants, we have asked applicants to divide their proposal up into distinct projects. And the purpose of that is to help us help them evaluate their project. So we will fund them for up to 2 projects within their funding category. It doesn't really matter to us what the level is. So for example, if they're applying for a $60,000 grant, they can invest $20,000 on project 1, 40,000 on project 2. That's fine. They could do it equally. They could apply for only one project and put all 60,000 for one project. That's fine too. But we are asking them to asking applicants to define their projects, so that way we can properly help them evaluate their projects and budget accordingly. So it's new this year how we're providing the guidance to do it. We've provided guidance in the past, but this year we're really providing even more guidance as to what makes a project a project. I think applicants may still not be sure, does this count as one project or 2 projects or 3 projects or 5 projects? And we might need to help them. And there is a process for us to help them work through that. But we've provided guidance to the applicants on what makes a project, namely it has an intervention, which includes activities on a service population to result in one main outcome. And there's only one outcome per project. If you see something where there's lots of different outcomes, then that's multiple projects. We also provided a video explanation of what is a project on our RFP page, so you can feel free to watch that video. We don't need you to get too concerned about did they do the project part right, because we will help the applicants along with that as well. Next slide. As I mentioned, there is only one main outcome for a proposed project, and we've already listed what those main outcomes can be. These are the outcomes for our grants. Outcomes that are not in here are not part of our grants. And we do this so that we can report, our big grant to ACL and to the world, what our outcomes are for all of these different subgrantees. So a program can have an outcome that impacts improved physical health, mental health, social health, spiritual health, access to home and community-based services, financial health, improved family caregiver experiences, improved understanding of the person-centered trauma-informed approach. This is spelled out very clearly in the application. The applicants it's actually a drop-down menu. They have to pick one. They shouldn't be able to pick more than one per project. But this is really an effort to help them create very clear, crisp, distinct projects that can be evaluated on that outcome. Can you go to the next slide? We do have some funding limitations. These funding limitations are some based in law that JF&A and the federal government has to follow, and then some based in best practices and best use of funds. So these funding limitations are also written in the RFP. Sometimes applicants may propose something that is borderline on one of these. We ask you to flag that for us. Certainly we'll see it in the budget as well, and we'll work with them to make sure that there's nothing, they're not putting anything in the budget that wouldn't be allowed to be funded. Next slide. Our application process is divided into two stages for the applicants, stage one and stage two. Stage one is the main pass, is the main dividing point between which applications can advance and which ones will not. In the stage one portion of the applicant's process, they will submit a completed application, which includes a questionnaire that has the narrative, what is this project about? What are your goals? That's part of the questionnaire. A work plan, which is done in a chart or a table format, so they can put activities and designate what activities and what tasks are happening in what months of this project. So they have to show us that work plan. They have to show us the budget, which is done in an Excel workbook, and provide financial documentation, which are things like their latest audit report or their 990 or their 501c3 status letter, things like that. We ask you as the reviewers to weigh in on all of these except for the financial documentation. You do not need to read their audit reports or their 990s. I think you will have access to see it, but you don't need to do that. There's no scoring for that. So this is from the applicant's point of view. This is what their stage one looks like, and this is what you will help us review. Can you go to the next slide? Stage two. Once you do your scoring, and once Jewish Federation staff applies what we call a rubric to it, which looks at some other factors like geographic diversity, for example, we take a look at your scores and your comments, and we will then rank them according to your scores, and that will help us figure out which applications can advance to stage two. And in stage two is where the applicants work with us to make their proposal fit the requirements of this often complicated federal grant program. And I wish it weren't so complicated, but unfortunately it is. And so any applicant that advances from stage one to stage two, we know we have enough funding to fund them. So it's not competitive at that point anymore. That's stage two, is really the process by which we can ask them follow-up questions that you as a reviewer have identified. And you'll see places in your reviewing portal for you to write some questions. You might say, well, I see that you're going to do this task, but it's not written in the budget. How are you going to do it if it's not in the budget, right? And then we have the opportunity to say to them, hey, you say you're going to do this, it's in the work plan, but it's not in the budget. They have an opportunity to then put it into the budget and fix that. So what they submit to you is not the final. It would be rare if an organization, submits and we look at it and you say it's perfect and we say it's perfect, go forth. It doesn't usually happen just because there are so many complexities to this program. And so we really hold everyone's hand through stage two of the process, so that they can cross the finish line and make it to that final award letter. There have been situations in stage two where an organization, they realize that it just won't work. They can't make it work. They say that, they can't do it, with the number of projects or for whatever reason. And so we have a backup list of who we can bring into that stage two pool. And in stage two, they'll have that opportunity to revise, again, their questionnaire, their budget, their work plan accordingly. But that's all handled by JFNA staff. We don't need you because we'll already have your comments from stage one to feed them. Next slide, please. The applicant's questionnaire, I mentioned it has things like the narrative, they talk about the project, but it also has questions about organizational capacity, sustainability, and then there's the work plan and the budget application. Those are separate Excel uploads that they'll upload, and you'll see that. Next slide. This is a preview of what the work plan looks like. They write their key tasks and their activities below it on the left. And they write usually like an initial or an abbreviation of who is going to be doing that task. So you might see PM for project manager or SW for social worker, or, whatever code they use, and they'll provide a key for that code. They have to do a work plan for each project. And this is part of the importance of separating projects into distinct projects. They'll be separated on tabs. And so this is work plan for project one, work plan for project two. If they only have one project, then there's only one work plan then. Next slide. This is an example of what the budget template looks like. Again, it's divided into tabs. There's an overview tab, which is like a summary. And then there's two tabs for each project. The summary, I believe, does pull information from those second two tabs. So you'll have access to the whole thing, and we ask you to score, the whole budget and per project. We actually ask you to score all of it per project. Okay, next, review committee role. Can you go to the next slide? Next slide. We're so grateful for your feedback, not only for the written scores, but also for the qualitative comments and questions that you write in. After each section, you have an opportunity to write in some comments or questions. And then at the end, after you've read the full application, you have an opportunity to weigh in on your overall thoughts. Those are very helpful for us, both in two ways. For applicants that advance to stage two, we give them that feedback, of course, in a confidential way. They don't know your names. The review committee is not publicized. We don't publicize anyone's names. No one will know who reviewed their application, but we do say the review committee had this comment or the review committee had this question, and that feedback is very helpful for them. For organizations that did not advance to stage two, we offer an opportunity to have a feedback call with us where we share with them some of the comments and questions that the review committee had. That having those comments and questions is so incredibly helpful for those applicants. Not every funder gives that opportunity for feedback for applicants that they don't accept. I can honestly say we've been on that end of the funding process where we have not received a grant that we've applied for, and we've asked for feedback and sometimes been told, oh, this funder doesn't give feedback. That's a little frustrating when you've invested so much time and energy into an application. I feel the least a funder could do is provide feedback that they already have that could help the applicant for the next opportunity. So we really take your feedback seriously on both the proposals that advance and the proposals that don't advance. And that helps those applicants. I'll give you one very brief story. We once had an applicant that was successful in one grant program, not successful in another. They asked for feedback. We gave them feedback. A couple of years later, they contacted me and they asked, they said, would you like to propose a session together at a conference at Grantmakers in Aging to talk about the importance of feedback and how helpful it is for an applicant to get that feedback? So here we have this applicant that didn't receive funding is reaching out, asking us if we'll work with them on a different project. And we did, and it was accepted, and it was really fun and exciting. I have another example of an organization that applied twice and didn't advance for various reasons. And we had these phone calls and developed a relationship, and that relationship completely blossomed because they are on track with everything regarding person-centered trauma-informed care, and we've worked with them in numerous other ways back and forth. So there really is a lot of value in that feedback, that process, and we can only give that feedback with your help. So thank you in advance. A little bit more about your role that's written on here. You should not need to do any outside research to help you understand what the applicant is trying to say. The onus is on the applicant. They need to tell you everything. There's word limits. I get it. That's hard. They have word limits, but they should tell you everything that you need to know to have a clear understanding of what they're trying to do in this proposal. So don't do outside research. If there's something that you don't understand, they need to make a better case. You can certainly write in your comments, I don't understand this. I'm not going to stop you from doing outside research. I know that our review committee is full of curious overachievers who want to know everything. So, of course you can learn, but the applicant really needs to make their case in the application for what this project is going to do. And then about conflicts of interest, I know at this point, if you're part of our review committee, you have already received an email inviting you to tell us which organizations you might have a conflict of interest with. Please do that if you haven't already. Please make sure to fill out that conflict of interest form so that when we're assigning proposals, we don't accidentally assign you one that you may have a conflict with. But it does happen on occasion where you might not have realized that you might have a potential conflict, or you might have learned after the fact that a relative of yours worked for this organization or something like that. If at any point you recognize that there is a potential conflict, please let us know, and we will reassign your proposal. And let us know on the sooner end, so that way, whoever is the next person to take over that proposal still has adequate time to do that. And then finally, this is the first time we've ever had this in our instructions, is please don't use AI to do your reviews. You might be curious and see, like, what does AI think about this? I'm actually kind of curious now that I think about it, but we would like for you to put your human on, keep your human on, and use your own knowledge and your own expertise to do these reviews. And if you have any questions about anything at all throughout the process, we are here for you. Next slide, please. Applications are due tomorrow, the 15th. So we're expecting a big group of applications to come in very soon. We might receive as many as 130. I don't think we're going to receive 130. That's how many submitted an intent to apply. But we don't know. We don't know how many will come in. In the past, reviewers have scored between 4 to 6 applications. It's usually on the 4 to 5 level. But again, we don't know how many applications we will receive. So we don't know right now exactly how many we will assign each reviewer. Applications take an average of about 2 hours to read and score each. Of course, different people work at different speeds. But that's what we've heard is an average. And we have, we always do a feedback survey at the end, and we ask our reviewers about how much time does this take to do all of your reviews. And they've told us, total time, they've said about 11 hours, counting, this time that you're spending with me right now, questions, things like that. And we've asked, does it feel like this is too much of an investment time, or is it taking too much time, not enough time, too little time, right? And they all say it's about right. And so we feel, we feel confident, and just by the nature of how many repeat reviewers we've had on here, that the investment in time is worth it and does provide meaning to the review committee. So thank you so much for investing that time. Please join SMA. SMA means SurveyMonkey Apply. That's the name of the software that we use. Please join SMA. You should have received an email invitation, or you're about to receive an email invitation. Amanda will tell you those logistical details. You're about to receive you'll receive an email invitation. Please join by May 26th. That's the date at which you'll do something in the software that Amanda will tell you. And your review period begins on that day, from May 26th through June 12th. It's not a lot of time. It's like 2.5 weeks, and I'm sorry about that. It's a little bit rushed. We have an interim deadline, which is about a week and a half after the start, June 5th. We're asking you to please review 2 proposals by June 5th, at least 2. You can do all 4 by June 5th, but at least 2 by June 5th. What we've found is a lot of reviewers tend to wait until the end, the last couple of days or the last week, and then it creates a burden on the reviewer's time. And usually they do it, they rise to the occasion and they do it because they want to fulfill their commitment. But we don't want to create that hardship for any reviewer. And quite frankly, the anxiety on our end that maybe a proposal won't get scored and we'll have to find a last minute replacement. So that's why we're asking you to please submit at least 2 application reviews by June 5th. That will help us get scores in and space out your time a little bit. Next slide. The review committee evaluates those applications to determine whether they are clear, cohesive, and realistic. There are very clear instructions in your portal, and it's our application breaks it down by question. So it's not as though you read a 15-page narrative and then answer a bunch of questions and forget what you read. It's not like that. There will be one question that the applicant answers in 150 words, and then you will score their answer to that question. Questions are worth different amount of points. There are some questions that are valued higher than others. That will be very clear The point value will be very clear to both the applicant as well as to the reviewer. And so you will allot how many points you think that question or that response has earned. So if it's a 5-point question, which is the lowest amount of points, if it's a 5-point question, you can give it a 1, 2, 3, 4, or a 5. If it's a 10-point question, you can give it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so forth. Higher points is for a better answer. Lower points is for a worse answer. And we ask you, we tell you in that application what we're looking for in that answer, so it will be clear to you. This last point, second to last point, some applicants will propose one project. Some applicants will propose 2 projects. All are scored independently. The number of projects will not influence the final score. We have the ability to determine the points that are earned out of the total points that are possible. And so if they propose only one project, they're not at a disadvantage from an organization that proposed 2 projects. So you can evaluate every answer to every question on its own merits. And the fourth point here is that we ask you to please be discerning in your scores. Sometimes we've had reviewers who give everything a 99, like the final, all 4 proposals that they've reviewed, they've scored and given them all 99s. They might all be 99 level, but probably they're not. And this is a very generous reviewer. That's not, we need more help than that. We have a lot to review and we have to make some hard decisions. And so we do need you to be discerning in your scores. If you notice yourself that you've scored everyone the same, we ask you to take a look back and see, do you really mean it this way? Again, use your discretion. Maybe they are all actually the same, but if you consistently score all of them, high or all of them low, please try to recognize that in your scoring and be discerning with the scores. Next slide. What happens? What are the steps towards a funding decision? So first, the review committee will score these proposals. After that, we will apply a rubric for additional scoring, which I mentioned includes information like geographic diversity or types of PCTI innovations. We also do look at past performance in this federal grant program, as we've seen that past performance is often an indicator of future performance. Funding decisions are based on these 2 scores. And organizations that are applying to this grant, some of them have received funding in the past and some of them have never received funding in the past. Some might be receiving funding from us now. What category they're in does not necessarily put them at an advantage or a disadvantage in terms of the scoring, but past performance is factored into the scores. Next slide. And this again is where I mentioned about stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 1 is the first pass. The review committee scores the applicants. We take the ones that rise to the top. We tell those applicants that they are advancing to stage 2, and we work with those applicants to make their proposals fit the recommendations, fit the funding levels, and make sure that they are tight enough to launch on day 1, which is January 1st, 2027. Stage 2 is not a second chance for a weak applicant to do better. Unfortunately, we don't have enough money to fund any weak proposals. Stage 2 is really a chance to tighten up proposals. So sometimes, we all have big hearts and there's such great need, and a reviewer might write in the comment, if they can, change this in stage 2 and fix this in stage 2 and make it this. If it's so different, then they're probably not ready to be in stage 2. Stage 2 is really an opportunity for tightening good proposals to make them even stronger. It's not a redo. Next slide. This brings me to Amanda's portion. Amanda Jarvis is going to describe to you the logistics and the technical aspects of working with SurveyMonkey Apply.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you for moving the slide along. So I'm going to walk you through the workflow for you as a reviewer. If you have any logins anywhere online, this will feel hopefully intuitive for you. Nothing is so different from other websites. You will not have received an email yet, but you will in the coming days. You'll get an email from the address no reply at mail.smapply.net. You can see it here. So if you don't see that come in, you can talk to your IT team or see if there's a firewall, or you can reach out to me directly and we can work something out together. Whatever email address you signed up as to the review committee with, please use that email address going forward. That'll be the one we have. Um, and if you already have an account with SMA because you've used it before, that will all work out and it won't be confusing. Next slide, please. Thank you. So when you get this email, it comes as an invitation to be a reviewer. So you'll click the Join Now button and you'll go to registration where you can set up your password. If you already have an account with SurveyMonkey Apply because you've used it before, then you'll just be brought to the home page and asked to sign in, log in. And so you'll log in and then we'll then be able to see the available applications to review, if there's any up already. When you get your account going, there won't be any to review yet. We want you to get comfortable logging in. Let us know if there's any major tech issues getting yourself logged in and in there. But you won't see them right away. We'll assign them by May 26th. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next slide, please. Thanks. So once you're signed in, you're going to see, once you're signed in and we've assigned the applications, your dashboard will show you how many applications you have, what the status of it is, and you'll see the start button so you know exactly where to go. And let's see. And you'll see if you've completed any and what the status of it is. Next slide, please. Thank you. You'll also be able to see some basic information about the applicants. You can keep them separate in your head, so they won't all show up as just like a bunch of numbers. You'll see the agency and the name of the grant. Next slide, please. Thank you. So you'll see it as a side by side. The screenshots are on the following slides. Maybe let's just go to the next slide and I'll walk you through it. So to make it as easy as possible for the review to go synchronously, you'll see on the left half of the screen the application that the applicant has filled out. On the right side of the screen, you'll have a form to fill out and it'll indicate, I'm sorry that these are so small, but we'll send these slides out after and you can review them also on your own. But it will be the same on the left and the right. And on the right, you'll be able to enter your scores and any comments that you want to and that you want us to have. Next slide, please. And this is another example, again, a small one, but you'll get the slides after and it'll be easier to see then. Next slide, please. Once you're finished with your review, and this answers one of the questions I saw come in, you can mark it as complete. Next slide, please. And marking as complete finalizes it, but if you aren't sure if you want to go back to it yet, then just save the draft. Once you mark it as complete, you can't make any more edits. So, but you're welcome to save draft of all of your reviews. And that way you can go back and compare them if you want and only mark it as complete when you are happy with your reviews and want us to have them. Next slide, please. Now, we'll get into the Q&A. I saw some really good questions come in. So let me go to my notes here. There was a question that came in about scoring. We do have the same scoring process for smaller and larger grants. And we don't know how many exactly will apply at either funding level. I would say something to keep in mind and something that is indicated in the evaluation is to take a look at the work plan and the budget and make sure that the funding that they are proposing seems to be sufficient for the activities that they're proposing. So that's part of what you would use to discern that. Let's see. I want us to have enough time for any other questions. There was a question about
Ama-
outcomes.
Amanda,
Oh,
can
sorry, go ahead.
I realize that we're almost at time at 3 o'clock. If it's okay, let's keep going and answer all of these questions. This is being recorded. If you have to leave, if you have another meeting scheduled, we understand and we respect your time. So if you have to leave, feel free, and we will send out the recording. But let's keep going so that we can answer all of these questions.
Thank you, Shelley. Somebody asked about outcomes. Do they each have to have their own outcome? So there should be one outcome for each project. If they propose two projects, each of them will have one outcome. It can be the same outcome or it can be a different outcome. Let's see, more questions are coming in. Let's see. Go back to my notes. Somebody asked about family caregiver definition. It's they don't have to have prior experience. They don't have to be professionally employed. Either the family caregiver or the individual receiving the care must be at least 60 years of age and have a history of trauma. Let's see. Thanks to everyone who has to leave now. I look forward to being in touch with you soon. Let's see. Somebody asked about PCTI training and if that is an allowable project because it said that it wasn't. We will allow a project that trains supporters of service populations if it covers information that has not already been covered in our center's online course. Our center has an asynchronous online course that is currently free as a PCTI training. And so if the training is a specific population that we don't cover, then we do welcome their insights on how to best be PCTI to different populations.
But if they propose to do training, they also have to have a direct service component to the service population. It can't only be training. They have to also have a direct service.
Thank you. Is the scoring rubric guidelines included in the portal or found in a separate document? A link to it will be found in the portal and we'll include it in the follow-up email for you. Are there any other questions? I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. I'm going to pass the mic briefly back to Shelley.
I think there are still some questions in the chat.
There are still questions I didn't
Yeah.
get to. I'm sorry.
Like match.
Match.
Oh, I see that some people have been answering questions in the chat. Okay. Well,
Yes. Yeah. Alyssa responded, but I'll read it out loud. You're right.
yeah.
Is the match limited to the minimum required match of $20,000 or $35,000, or can the applicant provide a larger match? The only match that we will look at is limited to the minimum required match. Anything that is outside of that would be considered overmatch, and that's not something that we measure. Can we consider applicants with strategic partnerships that may contribute to financial sustainability? Shelley.
Can the person who wrote that question in, if they're still on here, unmute themselves and ask it again?
Yes, I certainly can. This is Bill Mayer. Hi, Shelley. So in certain situations in the past where there are partnerships, like with a foundation, like another a government source where there are multiple contribution to the match,
Mhm.
in general, if it looks like that will contribute to financial sustainability in the future, is that something that we can consider and emphasize? Was I clear about the question?
Absolutely. Like certainly they can have support. They have to have a clean budget for us. They have to be able to report on the money that they're spending and be
Sure.
able to show,
Yeah.
what these dollars exactly are doing. If they're sophisticated budgeters, then they should be able to do it. We certainly don't want to limit um, the sustainability of a project, and partnerships are always encouraged.
Thanks.
Okay. Are there other questions in here that we want to talk about? Um, is there a baseline expectation to determine the outcomes? What do you mean by that?
So that was my question. My understanding is if you're trying to measure an outcome of an intervention, there has to be a sense of what the baseline starting point was,
Oh,
in order to see like did someone's health improve X percentage or whatnot. So I'm curious if the one of the requirements is providing a baseline for that measurement.
so we do require each applicant to evaluate their program. And we provide a lot of evaluation support to the applicants. And once they become subgrantees, we help them set up what their evaluation would be, because it's different depending on what each project would be. And then we help them, we provide actually a set of questions. And this is another reason why we only have that choice of 7 or so outcomes. We provide them with a set of questions that they can survey participants with that can give that baseline if a baseline is appropriate for that project. Okay.
Amanda, there was a question about if someone can go back to a completed review to re-review it after they've read other applications.
Yes, thank you. As long as you save the draft and do not mark as complete, you can go back. If you mark it as complete, it shows up to us as complete. If say you made a mistake and you marked as complete and you did not mean to, please reach out to me and we will find a workaround. But just going forward, save it as a draft. And then when you're finished with what I think some reviewers in the past have found to be a promising practice is saving all of their reviews as drafts. And then when they've completed all of their reviews, to then mark all of them as complete at once.
So I realized that best practice actually goes against our new concept of having reviewers submit 2 by that interim deadline.
I see.
I don't know. Do your best.
You can submit and we can work something out.
Yeah,
If you
do your best,
contact me, I can help.
To do them in increments. Save it as draft. Do submit 2, mark at least 2 complete by that deadline. If after you've read your other ones after the deadline, you say, "Oh my goodness, I really wish I could change my answer," contact us. We'll figure out a workaround for you to be able to do that. Great question. Here's a question. Is there a higher expectation for projects that are worth more money in option B than option A? No, actually, the scores are worth the same. And so we really want the funding to fit what that project's needs are. The funding level should be appropriate for the project. And that's one of the questions that you'll be asked to weigh in on as a reviewer. If this project doesn't seem like it should be quite as expensive as they're making it out to be, that's something that you would flag. Or the opposite. Oftentimes, an organization will propose something on a shoestring budget, and you realize from your experience, there's just no way they can do everything they are saying they're going to do in here with this budget. That should also be flagged. So it should be appropriate they should answer the question appropriately and create the right budget appropriate for the project that they are trying to do. And your scoring is written right in there. So, if there's a question about the budget that's worth 5 points, it's going to be worth 5 points, whether they've applied for the higher or the lower funding amount. It's still worth 5 points. How many of each level are planned and does it matter? We don't know. This is the first year that we're trying that two option system. We don't know how many we're going to get at the one level. We don't know how many applications we're going to get at the higher level. We don't know which ones are going to be scored higher, scored worse. We have we know we have a certain number of dollars to spend, and then you have to help us figure out how to spend that, per project. So it really depends on what the scores will be. I think maybe we've gotten them all answered. Does anyone have any other questions? Do you want to unmute yourself to ask any other questions? We will we'll have a wrap up once all of the scores are completed. I don't remember if we've sent out the date of that, but we'll have another opportunity to come together on Zoom, and you can discuss proposals or how it went for you. We'll give you a survey for feedback. We love feedback at any point in this process. We love feedback if you have a question for us or an idea that has nothing to do with this RFP process, and you are reading an organization and you're like, hey, the Jewish Federations really ought to talk to this group that I know of from my other work because they could do something really amazing together. Send us your ideas. We love working with good, smart, creative people because the ideas start flowing and just gives us so many more directions to spread person-centered trauma-informed care. So please don't be a stranger. If you have any questions at all about the review process, reach out to Amanda. She is your primary point of contact for the review. And whether that's technical or substance, please reach out and we'll come together again. And again, stay in touch. And we so appreciate your help. Thank you.